Dear students, welcome. Today I am here with an important topic for you guys, and the topic is identifying and explaining the figures of speech from any text. This is important question for those students who are going to appear for the paper or for exam of the English literature specifically. So here the text is in front of you. I'll explain briefly that how any figure of speech is identified from any text, any poetic extract or any poem, and how we explain that figure of speech or literary term. So let me start. The text is in front of you yourself. You can read this text, but I'll read before. I will explain and identify the figures of speech. The sea of our forefathers was not a gracious Mediterranean, washing with blue water the steps of marble palaces, but an ocean grey and tumultuous, beating upon dismal shores and sterile promontories. This is the text you can see in front of your screen. Now I move towards the figures of speech. That is our topic, and we will identify the numbers of figure of speech is mentioned here, and you will see that how I identify and explain those figures of speech. Before identifying the figures of speech, I will tell you that there are two ways for analyzing any figure of speech or literary term from the text. First, if a piece of text or any poem entirely covers any figure of speech, or the main theme or the main title, that is the figure of speech of that entire text. So we call it generalizing the text in terms of figure of speech, that a whole text focuses on a single figure of speech. A single figure of speech covers a whole text. We call it general analysis of that text, specifically in terms of literary terms of figure of speech. And secondly, partially. Second way is partially we identify any extract, any poetic extract, any poem or any prose writing separately, individually, word by word, line by line. So this is the second way of identifying and explaining the figure of speech. Here we will explain the figure of speech one by one in this text. Let me start. The first figure of speech here is sea. This is the first figure of speech. This is metaphorically described here, and the figure of speech named as metaphor. Metaphor. So how is it metaphor? Sea of our forefathers means the living environment of our forefathers was a maritime, was a sea environment. So that environment is directly compared with the name of sea. That's why we call it metaphor. This is the reason for we call it metaphor. This is metaphorically compared. Second figure of speech in this extract is washing. This is second. So washing is the human act, and we are comparing this act with a non-human object like sea. Sea is washing. So the second figure of speech in this case is personification. Is personification. Thirdly, with blue water. Blue is imagery, vivid picture. It is a imagery, water, the steps of marble palaces. This entire line is full of imagery, that is a visual imagery, full of senses, and generally we call it visual imagery. Visual imagery. Blue water. Blue water, the steps of marble palaces. But an ocean grey and tumultuous. Again ocean, grey ocean and tumultuous. This is again a vivid picture of this line, and a writer explained this as a visual imagery. So again here visual imagery is repeated. Ocean gray, this is a visual imagery. Ocean gray and tumultuous. Tumultuous is a characteristic. There are two poetic devices that resemble with each other in some sorts. Like first is personification, and second we call it transferred epithet. Transferred epithet. Transferred epithet means comparing human characteristic like feelings, emotions, sentiments with non-human objects. What is personification? Personification is only comparison of human action, but transferred epithet mean transferring human characteristic like feeling, emotions, sentiments to non-objects. So here is the state. We can also call it state, human state. So tumultuous is a state, means unkind, uncontrolled. Tumultuous means. So this is the state that we find it human, but we are giving this characteristic to non-human object like sea. So that's why we call it transferred epithet. In fifth case, we can see here beating upon. Again personification is repeated here. Beating is the characteristic of, beating is the action of, beating is the action of human, and here we give this action to non-human object, that is sea. Dismal shores. Dismal shores mean like here the word dismal shore. Dismal mean sad, you can say full of disparity, sorrow. This is the symbolism. This is the symbolism. So we can also call it symbolism, but specifically it will be repeated like transferred epithet. Dismal is the human characteristic. Sadness, sorrowful, like grief, you can call it, and despair. This is the human characteristic we find in shores. So shores are non-human object. So transferred epithet is repeated in this case. So here again dismal shores and sterile promontories. Sterile mean bare, barren, you can call it. Promontories, cliffs. Promontories are called cliffs. Meaning of the promontories is cliffs. So generally, now we generally cover this entire text that a non-human characteristics or non-human actions are given to human actions and human characteristics are given to non-human entity, non-human object, that is ocean or sea. So if we generally analyze this, so our analysis would be like that this text is generally personified. This text is generally personified because characteristics and the actions are given to sea that are found in the human. So these are the some figures of speech we found here. Hopefully this lecture would be much helpful for you for identifying and explaining the figures of speech in effective way and in comprehensive way. Thank you.